training, which is really the first of two parts where we're going to look at AdWords being right for your business. In lesson 4, we're going to look at the general characteristics of the types of businesses, of products and services that work well or not on AdWords. And in lesson 5, we're then going to look at what you can expect when you run AdWords. Together, those two lessons give you a really good insight as to whether or not AdWords is right for you and your business, and you can live with the whole set of expectations and outcomes you are likely to get when you run an AdWords campaign. So they're a really important pair of modules that I would strongly suggest when you've watched this one, go straight into the next one, because together you'll get a really good understanding. Before we dive in though, quick refresh from the previous module where we looked at the different types of adverts available within Google AdWords, and finish with the fact that in this training we're going to focus on search and remarketing, because that's where buyers live. That's where we find buyers, on the search network, and by remarketing to them. And we're going to do that within Google because it is the number one. It's the gorilla in the room. It wins every time, even over Facebook, which is very cool and trendy right now, but is not catching up with Google just yet. So let's have a look at who AdWords is for. AdWords, on the left hand side, you have a list of characteristics, things that we see in businesses that are likely to work well with AdWords. Down the right hand side of the screen, we've got examples, and you should be able to relate some or all of these to your business. So AdWords works great where there's a sense of urgency about making an inquiry or making a purchase. So we want people who are going to take action. We want buyers, not browsers. And one of the best examples of this is an emergency locksmith. You can almost guarantee that if someone is searching on their cell phone in particular for an emergency locksmith, they are either locked out of their car or their house, or there's been some damage done and they need to close a door quickly. That person is highly likely to become a buyer very, very quickly. So you can afford to pay for that ad. The conversion rate, so the number of people who click your ad to become buyers, are likely to be very, very high. So it's an ideal AdWords environment, as is those businesses that have high margin products or services. And I've used the example of dentistry. So if you're a cosmetic dentist, a treatment for implants and whitening and all those kind of things can run into thousands of dollars. So you can afford to pay a few $100s in some cases to acquire a patient, knowing that that return and that spend is going to be returned many times over during the lifetime of their treatment. Another thing that we think about is differentiated products and services. So if you have something with a brand name on it, people often ask, why should I advertise on branded goods? Because people know who I am. Well, one of the reasons that it's great for branded products when you are the brand owner, and I've emphasized you're the brand owner, not a middleman necessarily. If you're the brand owner in particular, then you can control that market. You can get incredibly cheap buyers for your products. And it's crazy not to do it because the opportunity there is so big. But the flip side of that, and this is why it's actually quite difficult sometimes to determine what's good and what's not, is that a Me Too competitor can work just as well for different reasons. So let's imagine the scenario: home furnishings. Let's look at a couch. If somebody is looking for a brown couch, any number of suppliers could supply a brown couch, and it comes down to styles, prices, materials, things that are very difficult to sell in an AdWords ad. And so somebody is very unlikely to come in with a particular brand in mind or with a particular style or model in mind. They'll have a general idea of what they want. So at that point in their buying process, they haven't made a decision who's going to be their supplier, which means that you, as a new business to them, as a new supplier, you can make an impact. So your brown couch is just as good as anybody else's on the face of it until they get into the detailed evaluation about colours and styles and comfort and that kind of thing. So in those kind of markets where we know that the person is coming into a buying process unlikely to have decided where they're going to buy from, you can be very, very successful. I mentioned this before about sense of urgency, and this is kind of related, but not directly. Short purchase cycles. So an urgent purchase, like a locksmith, is an immediate, have to have this now. Emergency dentists. Anything with the word emergency in it has a high sense of urgency. But there are also things that have got very short purchase cycles, like repairs. So roof repairs, car repairs, home repairs. All those things get bought very quickly. So in many cases, before you have even paid for your ad, cash can be in your bank. In a future training, we've actually got a section on the cash flow cycle for AdWords because it's super important that you understand how cash flow works. So short purchase cycles are great. And the other thing that we look for is repeat purchases. Anything where the buyer is likely to keep buying over and over and over again, like heating oil, like pool cleaning, domestic cleaning, these things where they get used over and over again, consumable products, food things where they will get consumed, work great because you can have a high lifetime value of that customer. So that said, who isn't AdWords for? And here's a few examples. If your product is very low margin, then you're going to struggle to have enough profit in your sales to actually cover the cost of the adverts. Some great examples of this. Training shoes. A $50 pair of shoes may have $5 to $10 of margin in there for the retailer. That makes it very expensive and difficult for that store to sell those items profitably. It's a very difficult thing for them to do. A lot of electronic products, like digital cameras and those kind of things, the margin that the retailer takes is very, very small. So even though it might look like an expensive product, there's no money in it for them because everybody's fighting over every ounce of margin, so they can't afford to sell those things on AdWords. Similarly, if you've got to sell a service that's one-off and is a small value item, then that's not likely to work either. And I've used the example of a hair salon. I appreciate and understand there are some very expensive, high-end hair salons where customer values over their lifetime are very high. But if you take your typical walk-in hair salon, particularly where a gent and a man might go, you will walk in, you will sit down, you'll get a haircut, you'll walk out. You may never go to that place again. Those kind of one-off, small value services are difficult. Things like pizza delivering, again, is another example where if you have no loyalty to a particular chain or a company, then it's very difficult to be profitable. The other thing is a characteristic of the individual, of the business owner. If you as an advertiser are unwilling to invest in developing a campaign over a period of time, accepting the fact that in the early days that might not be profitable for you, then AdWords isn't for you as a business. Forget your product, it isn't for you because your mindset as a business owner is wrong. Just flicking back to a final type of product that doesn't work very well, impulse buys. You may have seen these ads all over Facebook over the last 12 months, people advertising funky t-shirts of all sorts of different descriptions, cat t-shirts. Great example of something. People aren't generally searching for cat t-shirts. A small proportion of people maybe, but you're more likely to see an ad on Facebook or somewhere similar that catches your eye and that you choose to purchase. The other thing is what I call the Amazon test. Take a look at your product. If you're thinking of selling a product on Amazon, so service businesses don't need to worry about this, but if you're a product vendor and you sell something, go to Amazon and search for it. See what results you get. If your product is all over Amazon with lots of competitors fighting for those sales with very similar types of products, that's going to be a really difficult thing to sell on AdWords profitably. And you probably want to avoid that. So the Amazon test is a great, benchmark for if it's going to work for you or not. Now, one final thing that businesses often don't think about. AdWords has policies. There are certain things that it doesn't let you do in your business and certain things it doesn't let you advertise. So certain types of businesses are just not allowed to advertise at all. And generally that's things that are in line with local law. So if something you want to sell is illegal, there's a pretty good chance you won't be able to sell on AdWords. there's not a chance you won't be able to sell on AdWords. So they do not allow illegal products. But there are also lots of things that are legal that they still don't allow. Google have made the decision that they want their environment to be largely family friendly and fully compliant with all local laws. So things like gambling, adult, some medicines and non-medicines, so non-regulated pharmaceuticals, weapons, they're all, in many cases, impossible. In lots of cases, very, very difficult to sell on AdWords. And I'm thinking specifically of medicines, where there are exceptions where you can, but gambling, adult, and weapons, you certainly can't ever sell on AdWords. So, if you want to do a quick search within Google and look at the AdWords policies, if you're in any doubt at all, that's the place to go check. Just search for AdWords policies and it will show you the types of businesses that can't advertise if you're in any doubt at all. So before we move on, take a quick look at your product and service offerings and just give it some thought. Are they a good fit? And be honest. It's important at this stage that you're honest about what is and isn't a good fit. And think about it in that context. Bear in mind, the next session coming up, we're looking at expectations. That fits great with this. I suggest if you can go straight onto that training module. Bye for now.